a parliamentary inquiry into the alleged rand manipulation. No, that story is not gone as yet. The party has written to the Speaker of Parliament, Thoko Didiza, to institute proceedings. Now, I want to just give you the background. The currency manipulation started around 2015 when the Competition Commission alleged that several banks colluded to manipulate the value of the rand against the US dollar. It's such an important discussion. Now, it went to the Competition Appeal Court. That was this year, but they dismissed the case against the majority of the banks. So what now? Why is the ATM unhappy? Let's speak to their leader, Vuyo Zungula, who's making time for us this afternoon. Mr. Zungula, good to have you on eNCA. Help me understand, if I see that the Competition Appeals Court, the CAC, has not taken this much further, why are you still unhappy? Don't you trust the courts?
Look, Gareth, what is important for citizens to remember is that Parliament as an institution has got an obligation to discuss and oversee any matter that is of public concern. It is clear the question of rand manipulation is a grave concern for majority of the citizens. Now, in that context, as the ATM, given the report that was done by the Competition Commission, which found, amongst other things, that there were banks that voluntarily were paid or settled out of court. There were some organizations that were fined 43 million, such as Standard Chartered. So in that view, as the ATM was saying, that particular investigation was between 2007 and 2013. Now, South Africa is not a country that is immune to fixing or collusion of industry players. You recall that there was a bread fixing scandal. There was a collusion of construction companies when it came to the building or the construction of World Cup stadiums. So we want, as the ATM, for Parliament to thoroughly investigate the matter, look into how there are limitations into the scope of the Competition Commission. Because as lawmakers, it is our duty to alter the law, to change the laws when we see that there are some confinements or some limitations to some of these institutions that are doing some of the work. So given the nature of the report, we view that it is important to give confidence to citizens that this matter that is of grave concern to citizens, Parliament is acting on it. And secondly, for any issues whereby there is legislative constraints for these institutions, Parliament is able to investigate and provide a change in the law so that to enable institutions such as the Competition Commission to be empowered to deal with this issue.
And I think many people would agree with you, Vuyo. I don't think anyone will argue against more clarity, more consultation and more independence and more introspection on issues when it comes to competition. What I'd like to get a sense from you, though, is if the Competition Appeal Court and the Competition Commission, they had a very clear framework they were set to work within. How is your suggested framework with Parliament, this inquiry, going to be different to the framework they worked under? How, as an organization, do you try and expand or enhance the work from before to come to a different conclusion?
Look, the report from the Competition Commission obviously will be used as a base with those recommendations. However, for us, we are saying that the work that was done from 2015 was focusing on a certain time period, which is from 2007 up until 2013. Between 2013 and now, no one can confidently state that there is no rand manipulation that has taken place. You'll recall that there were even statements that were made by even Ms. Helen Zille of the DA, was saying that whenever there was the negotiations with the ANC and the DA were working fine, the rand, was in their favor. So it is in that context where we as the ATM would not want a case whereby some of these important institutions or the currency in our country is influenced by political decisions, especially in the context in which Ms. Zille was speaking about. The second issue that we want to state was, in that report, the question of jurisdiction was raised as one of the confinements. So that is why we view that a broadened scope will not have any constraints when it comes to the question of jurisdiction. And the last thing was the penalties. 43 million was a fine that was given to Standard Chartered Bank, whereas when you look at the reports, over R1 trillion was lost by the South African economy a day for that particular rand manipulation. Now, how can the fine be in the region of 43 million? And we're talking about an international bank here that is making millions of rands, and it is a slap in the wrist for them to be charged only 43 million. So it is in that context whereby we want transparency, we want accountability, we want what is done in other countries whereby any individual that has played a role in manipulation of the currency are given lengthy prison sentences and not just fining a company or a bank 43 million, whereas the money that these banks are making is in the excess of billions.
Remind me, under a parliamentary inquiry, what would the powers involve? Could you call, for example, to a special inquiry, the banks that you're referring to as well, like Standard Chartered? Could they be recalled and appear before Parliament? Just remind me of the powers an inquiry might have.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to the question of powers, the Parliament does have powers to summon each and every entity, each and every individual that has got, which is operating within our country. Therefore, there's not going to be constraint to say a company, because if you have a company, for example, Standard Chartered, that is operating in South Africa, that company has to comply with the laws of our country and has to ensure that there is financial integrity of our institutions. Therefore, any misconduct in the light of those particular companies, Parliament has got the authority to summon such companies who are operating in our country. Therefore, there will be no companies that are going to be shielded. There's no company that will be left from being held accountable, because we're working with existing laws, but at the same time, as lawmakers, we're working as to how can we refine the current laws to enable our financial systems to be able to detect and prevent such occurrences from happening in the future. So that is why an inquiry by Parliament is critical, because over and above what is done by the Competition Commission does not have the powers to change the laws. It is only Parliament that is able to do so. So the inquiry by Parliament will yield results to say, this is the weaknesses in terms of our laws, and this is how the laws need to be altered or changed so that we become, we strengthen our mechanisms to prevent any currency manipulation, either by local banks or international banks.
Well, I appreciate your time in joining us. ATM leader Vuyo Zungula making time for us this afternoon. They want a parliamentary inquiry into the alleged rand manipulation. Yes, there was the Competition Commission. Yes, there was the Competition Appeal Court. Unhappy with those findings now, and this is why the powers is what I was so interested on, but also the frame of reference within a parliamentary inquiry. How does that differ from what we saw all the way back in 2015 and just beyond that? We'll get a sense, I'm sure, from many other political parties as to what their reaction will be to an inquiry on rand manipulation.